Welcome to the Emblazing Leaders Vodcast. I'm your hostess, Dr. Talisa Sullivan. Join me as we hear from leaders across diverse fields around the world. Welcome, Emblazing Leaders. We have Eric Calderon. He has a new job. He'll tell us about his title, and then I'll go into the next question. So first, go ahead and tell us your title and your new job, and tell us how it's going, and then we'll get into the questions.
For sure. So I switched jobs about 2 years now, starting November. So it's almost to that 2-year mark.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I put in about 18 years in K-12.
Wow.
So in my 19th year, moved over to a community college. And the transition has been, you see a lot of things that are very similar to K-12, but a lot of things that you're helping your students build up to get to that space, right? It's how do we get our students prepared? So it's really great to see how we articulate that group to the community college and just seeing some of the awesome things that our districts did to allow those students to be successful in our space. So it's really cool to see that. So my new title is Chief Information Systems Officer at Citrus College in Glendora, California. So if anyone's listening that's looking to apply in that area, just a little shout out to the college. Great things are happening there.
All right. Well, okay. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. It's so odd that we were so connected. We worked in RCOE together,
Mhm.
and we would. I mean, I'm going to just call it the cafeteria talks because you would be at the cafeteria at probably the same time, if not every day, most every day, and we could just come in and ask questions, come in and have dialogue, conversation, just authentic. And so, but I'm sad that I didn't even know that you transitioned to community college. I know
Mhm.
you went to somewhere else, but I didn't
Mhm.
know where. So, well, welcome into this space, and I can't wait to dig into some questions to kind of give our audience some golden nuggets from Eric Calderon.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the first question, and I'm just going to ask you to tell us more about your leadership journey and what would you say has shaped you as a leader?
Okay, so I'm going to throw this back way back to kind of give you a context of who I am.
Okay.
So, and it'll help frame kind of how my journey went in terms of leadership.
Okay.
So, I'm going to go way back to about first grade, if that's all right with you.
You could go
We got
back.
time for this,
We
right?
got time to
All
go
right,
back to first
awesome.
grade. Yeah.
So, first grade, I am new to America. I come to America from the Philippines, right? So, not to, show off my age or anything like that, but this was in the 80s.
Okay.
And during that time, the Philippines was going through martial law, coup d'etats, stuff like that. So it was not I didn't know. Back in those days when I was a kid, I really didn't know that things aren't as good as they can be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward, first grade in beautiful Temple City, California, which is east of Pasadena. If those are folks are wondering. I start the first grade and I have this thing called a language barrier.
Mm.
So I'm trying to do the schoolwork, trying to meet friends, but I'm having this challenge with communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I learn this language? How do I communicate with other folks, right? So that kind of was the genesis of, I believe, my leadership journey, and in how do I become resourceful
Mm-hmm.
in that space? Who can help mentor me? Who can help teach me things that I need to do well in that space?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what kind of framed how I am in terms of learning as an adult, after going through all the schooling and things like that, is how can I have conversation with people that not only help me but help the other person build this relationship up,
Mm-hmm.
build this moment, right? So the question is how my leadership journey, right? So I kind of
Yeah, what
prefaced it.
shaped you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of prefaced it that I had to be resourceful, had
Yeah.
to learn a new language. Also, not only was it language, it's culture thing too, right? So it's
Yes.
a little change in things. And it's kind of funny. And this has nothing to do with what we're talking about here, but I remember coming to America and some of the things that I first remember was, oh my goodness, they have curbs and sidewalks here.
Wow.
I was tripping out. I'm like, this is great. I can walk on the sidewalk. So, like, little things like that made me really
Mm.
appreciate those things, right? Appreciate things that we don't necessarily appreciate because it's just there, right?
Right.
So, fast forward back to the leadership question. So, I
Right.
apologize.
No, it's okay. This is your time.
Yeah. So, the idea of my leadership journey has been a time where I had to be resourceful.
Hmm.
So when I was 25 years old, I was given my first directorship.
Wow.
25 years old. So there was a superintendent, I'm not going to say who, just to, for names and stuff,
Hmm.
who took the chance on me at 25 years old to be the director of technology for their school district. Right. So prior to that, I was a coordinator working at another school district, and
Hmm.
they thought, oh, he might have some potential to be the director here at this school district. And I reported directly to the superintendent.
Wow.
No pressure, right?
Right. I'm like, wow.
All right. So what was great though is that superintendent invested so much time into me to mentor me, to guide me, to look for things that I didn't necessarily know to look at.
Hmm.
But since he had been in that space for so long, he knew the little things. He knew what to look for, and he spoke that wisdom to me. I was so blessed to have that opportunity to learn from someone that's been so amazing, right? And he really was foundational to that leadership journey. He helped me understand who I was, what my capacities were, how to articulate when I have challenges, how to be resourceful in those challenges,
Wow.
right? So that was the beginning of my leadership journey in K-12, right? So fast forward 3 years from that. So I
Hmm.
had this amazing individual that helped shape my career. I had never managed people.
Wow.
25 years old, 25 years old,
Wow.
and your team is not as young as you are, and they're expected to have this type of dynamic and relationship. So that was tough. So it was really great. I was really grateful for him to show me that. Fast forward to my next job. So my next job was a position that was unique at the time, and this
Hmm.
was during the time where there's a lot of budget cuts. There were a lot of positions that were being unified into one, and it was
Hmm.
a job in Orange County. So the position was director of facilities and technology.
Okay.
Okay. So mind you, I was 25 years old when I started becoming a director of technology.
Hmm.
At 28 years old, I was a director of facilities and technology,
Wow.
leading a very broad type of team in terms of personalities, how they serve the
Hmm.
district, and things like that. And I got to say, I was really blessed as well in that space, just like I was with my previous superintendent,
Hmm.
that I had an amazing assistant superintendent, an amazing superintendent that took the time to really pour into me, like understood what mentorship really meant. And to take this 28-year-old one that has no idea what he's doing. I think I didn't know if I knew what I was doing, but didn't really necessarily know what I was doing in that space, but helped guide me, helped me learn from lessons because I made good decisions and I made bad decisions.
Hmm.
But it's how do I learn from those decisions? And
Yeah.
they were supportive.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love hearing the transition and the actual journey, the starting of your
Mhm,
leadership, and how you looked at how you navigated the space when you were young, when you
mhm,
got here, to navigating how do I make friends? How do I,
mhm,
learn the language? How do I communicate? And just having mentors. It sounds like you had some mentors that believed in you, even if you weren't sure about your own, like what do I do here? And you had people that poured in and then offered you development and support. One of the things that I always say is like, there are some things that cannot be taught. And I do want to say, Eric, in one of my first jobs, one of the reasons I got the job was because of what I couldn't be taught, because the rest of it they know I'm going to learn. And I'll say you are another one of the individuals that I would say has what cannot be taught.
mhm,
So I'm glad that people invested in you because look who you are and how you pour in to individuals now. So I appreciate hearing this journey. So thank you. I want to go back to a kind of a conversation that
mhm,
we've had, and I'm going to kind of skate away a little bit because we talked a little bit about mentorship, and maybe I'll go back and ask that in a minute. But I want to like go to a conversation that we had about kind of like a messages that we were messaging regarding moments in life where we can invest in people. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit, so I'm going to deviate from our questions if you don't mind, and just go into a conversation that I think we can kind of like organically have. Can you talk to us about, just some opportunities that we have to invest in other people, because you've talked about people investing in you. Can you share a little bit about your ideas around that?
For sure. Oh my goodness. So I wholeheartedly believe that there are moments for us here.
Mm,
And this moment we're having right here, I
yeah,
think is one of those moments,
yeah.
right? This is an amazing time that we can converse about my experiences, your experiences, and how we can use that time to build each other up,
Yeah.
right? I'm smiling, you're
A
smiling. So I mean,
Absolutely.
so
It's contagious.
for sure.
Yeah, the smiles are contagious, and
Mhm.
the iron sharpens iron
Mhm.
is how they say it. It's
Right,
contagious.
right. So I'm going to start off with a Chinese proverb that says that sometimes a moment with a wise individual is more than 10 years of schooling.
Wow.
So, like a moment that you can learn from someone that is wise is worth more than 10 years of going to school. I thought that was pretty powerful, right? And there's no other literature throughout the
It's
world
powerful.
that says, so I'm gonna give you an example of something else I read. It's kind of paraphrased, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
imagine this owner of a company,
mhm,
right, and has 3 employees, and all of a sudden they said, "All right, I'm going to see how good my employees are. I'm going to
mhm,
invest in my employees. I'm going to give them some money, and I'm going to see what happens at the end of the year." So, first employee, he gives $5,000, second employee, $5,000, third employee, $5,000, right? So, the first employee takes that money, goes, "Oh, $5,000 a year. All right, let's go." So, they not only invest the $5,000, but they invest their time to
mhm,
see that 5,000 grow. Second employee does the same thing, right? Goes, "All right, what can I do with this? What can I do with this $5,000 to see what I can do with it?" So both of those two individuals take that money, take their time, take the other resources that they know they have,
mhm.
turn $5,000 to $1,000,000. Okay,
Yes.
imagine that. This is
I'm
remember
imagining.
this is a story. This is a
Yeah.
story. So the third person goes, "Oh man, $5,000 for my boss. I don't want to disappoint my boss by losing this money. I'm just going to put them in the bank, or not the bank. I'm just going to put it inside a safe,
Yeah.
keep it safe, right?" Comes back year end, boss comes back and says, "Hey, what'd you guys do? I want to see what you guys did." First two employers like, "Yeah, we got you $1,000,000." And boss is like, "Oh, awesome. I just want the 5 grand back, and you guys can do whatever you guys want with the rest of the money."
Mm,
Third person goes, "I got you your 5 grand. Didn't do anything with it. Didn't lose it though. Didn't lose it." So the boss is like, "Well, that wasn't the point. The point was, what could you do with that?
mm.
I already took the risk of giving you that $5,000.
Right,
I was hoping you were going to make something bigger,
right,
right?" So the old adage is like, "Oh yeah, if I put that money in the bank, you could have just got me interest. At least give me the interest, right?"
right, right.
But what it is those two, the Chinese proverb in that story, kind of tell me like, if you have 5 minutes with someone, like we just had 5 minutes of having conversation,
Mhm.
what are you going to do with that 5 minutes?
Yes.
Is that five
Expand on it.
minutes going to be an expansion of I'm going to turn that 5,000 to a million?
Absolutely.
Or are we just going to just look at each other 5 minutes and just keep that in a safe?
Yeah, no, we're gonna take the opportunity, Eric, you and I, like
Mhm,
we've done in the past and like we'll continue to do,
mhm,
and we're going to expand and we're gonna drop nuggets for
mhm,
each other.
mhm,
I'm gonna probably talk a little to myself to be like, oh yeah, that's a good thought process. I'm gonna pour into you. You're gonna pour into me.
mhm.
We're gonna pour into our audience. Yeah, we're gonna grow our conversation.
Yeah, so imagine that. So
Yeah,
imagine that you're at your school site,
yeah.
you're at your job, you meet someone, you don't know them, you don't know them at all, but you have 5 minutes. What are you going to do with that 5 minutes? Because here's the fun part. I've been a part of education for a bit now.
Hmm.
There's I've been in higher ed for a little bit as well, and you spend those 5 minutes. Y- I have a list of folks that I consider my Hall of Fame because some of those folks that decided to pour that 5 minutes into me
Hmm.
are now in my Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Right? I think about them. I know what they've given me. They've shown me so much, but they may never know it, but they're in my Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Right? So, how many people will you spend time with for 5 minutes that will may think of you in their Hall of Fame?
Eric, I'm gonna tell you that I love this conversation, and I'm gonna say why. Like, I hope that I make an impact on others as some Hall of Famers have made on my life, and I'm
Mhm.
speaking of Hall of Famers in context to what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm hopeful that I can make that much of an impact in the 5 minutes that sometimes we have. Um, I love this. I love this, and I'm gonna tell you, of course, because I reached out to you, you know you're a Hall of Famer. That's
Maybe,
what.
I don't know.
No,
I still
yeah,
got some
because
time.
yeah, I'm gonna tell you why, because, it just the thoughtful conversation that we're having right now, I just feel like every encounter with you is a moment and an opportunity to really engage. Not it's not ever just surface, like, "How's the weather?" There's always an opportunity for us to talk and engage about education, about life, about regular just anything. So I appreciate this 5 minutes or more that we have to really engage. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
this
thank you.
this is so good, and I think too, it's like you never know when you're gonna make that impact.
Yeah. Yes.
It might be a little seed that gets planted, but you don't know how that seed's gonna turn out. It could blossom really well, and you can hope for that blossom, right? It's like you could be hopeful, but you don't ever know, but later on, maybe it is something that
Yeah.
happens,
It
right?
reminds me, and even though this is sort of off topic, but a little
Mhm.
bit on topic of the impact that we make in people, and then I'll move to the next question. Um, I remember when I first started teaching, I was at a high school in LA, and they had these little machines, these little coffee machines. And I wasn't a big coffee drinker, but they had these little cappuccinos that you could push the button and it would drop down, a little
Mhm.
powder
Yeah,
go in there
yeah,
and
yeah.
then the water. And so I found this French vanilla in there. So I would get this French vanilla. And so eventually, like a student would get it for me. They would be like, I got you your French vanilla, or I got you coffee, is what they would say. And so a young lady, she was ninth grade. I don't remember her name right now, but she said, at the time I was Miss Sullivan, so she was just like, "Miss Sullivan," she was like, I see you drinking that coffee every day." And I was like, "I gotta know, why does she think it's so good?" So I tried it and it was nasty. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Well, which one did you get?" She said, "I got the regular cappuccino." I said, "Girl, you gotta try the French vanilla." And so, I guess that's a little off topic, but on topic is like that little bit of time that they spend even watching us, they're wondering what we like and what we're doing and why do we like this, and they're following us. And not
Mhm.
just our students, but our staff. They are watching us. We're models for them. And so if we can give them that 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it is and pour in, not that we're aiming or shooting to be a Hall of Famer, but what
Mhm.
we're doing is shooting and aiming to make an impact to where they pour into other individuals too. So thank you for that story, and let's move on to the next question. I'm gonna take it back to mentorship
Okay,
because
for
we
sure.
talked about that a little bit when you were talking earlier, but what role does mentorship play in your professional development, and how do you seek out or provide mentorship opportunities?
So, this is something that has been taught to me, and I try to teach other folks about this. So, in my current place, I have student interns,
Mhm.
and they are
Nice.
part of the college. And it's how do I invest in them so that they know how to continue to navigate the professional life, their educational journey. And I always go in this idea of mentorship.
Mhm.
And what does that look like for them? Am I being a mentor to them? How can I model that so that some at one point they will be the ones that are mentoring other folks? And how do I continue to keep myself being shaped by others around me? So I got to say that I have informally had all my previous supervisors or bosses or
Mhm.
superintendents be my mentors, whether they liked it or not. Whether they liked it or not, they were my mentors. So, maybe informally, they didn't know that I was writing all the notes down, trying to model some of the stuff that they do.
Right.
But I think it's very important for the individual that is being mentored
Mhm.
to know what to look for, to know what will build on their game, right? So there's this athlete, he played basketball. His name's Kobe Bryant.
Mm.
I'm a big fan of that guy. And coming into the league, he comes in the league right out of high school and he's competing with folks that are very talented, very good in their space. And he is just one individual out of hundreds. And how does that individual make a name for themselves or be successful in that space?
Yes.
So, if you listen to a lot of his different leadership, videos or things like that, he showcases that he wanted to learn from the best,
Right.
whether it's Michael Jordan or other players, and learning from their techniques and not being scared to ask them how they did that.
Mhm.
So, being someone that is being mentored, like myself, I've always asked those folks that have that knowledge, that have
Mhm.
those things, to be able that I can have a relationship where I can ask them questions. How would you do this? And not necessarily the how, it's the why
Yeah.
would you do this, right? Because that paints a bigger picture of the bigger thinking that could happen from a mentor. And what's awesome is that I've been blessed with amazing superintendents in the last couple of years. My current superintendent, he does a really good job in leading by love, right? So I try to model some of the things that in my life, that how can I model that? How can I lead with love? Prior to that at RCOE, I had Dr. White, Dr. Gomez. I learned from Dr. Gomez on how to be better at decision making, right?
Yeah.
How to look at the big picture of things and to understand when to commit, when to do these things, right? Dr. White, you and I had a pleasure to meet with Dr. White, another individual that taught me servant leadership, right? The understanding of how can you take time to listen, be empathetic, and be there.
Mhm.
Like, be at the moment. Like, we were talking about the moment, like that 5
Yeah.
minutes of time, how do you be there,
It's awesome.
right? So, I feel that mentorship, I've been blessed with amazing mentors, whether they know it or not, they're my mentors.
Right.
But now, how do I mentor other folks?
Mhm.
How do I have these conversations? How do I build on what they've built in me in others, right? It's like taking that 5 minutes of time again and all that knowledge that's been poured into me, how do I pour that into someone else? And I had a delightful ride coming down here, by the way. Beautiful drive coming down here.
Awesome.
And I got to ride down here with another guest that you're probably going to have in a little bit here.
Yes.
And we took that moment to be something that we can pour into each other in terms of the leadership journey as well. So it's never taking those times for granted because every moment is a mentor or mentee moment, whether you choose it to be or not,
Yes.
right? So,
I love that, and I'm gonna say whether you choose it or not, I love it because and then that's why we're always talking about love and servant leadership,
mhm,
because whether you choose to pour in, positively or it ends up a different route, we're pouring in and we're engaging in, in conversations and, activities with other leaders that we impact on a daily basis. And what we're doing on purpose is loving, we're being servant. I heard you say it. You
mhm,
talked about your current superintendent that is love, and you talked about Dr. Gomez, who is one of my amazing mentors as
mhm,
well. With talking about his leadership and making good decisions, and Dr. White, her servant leadership. Yeah, those are Dr. White is another one of
mhm,
my amazing mentors, people
mhm,
that pour in, just pour in for, just whether they know it or not, they're
mhm,
pouring in,
mhm,
right? And so thank you for that. And thank you for reminding us that it's a two-way street, because
mhm,
it sounded like as you were, talking about your colleague that you were driving down with, you poured into each other.
mhm,
And so sometimes you're mentoring and sometimes you're menteeing,
mhm,
and so we two-way street.
right. And you just gotta be part of that moment, right?
Yeah.
It's it's part of that journey. And do you ever watch TV shows and stuff like that? Yeah,
Sometimes.
sometimes, right?
Yeah,
When you have free
sometimes.
time,
When I
whenever
have
that
free
is.
time.
So, it's easy to be the person on the couch and watching the storyline unfold
Yeah.
and thinking about the time of, "Oh, that's what's happening on the thing. I would do it this way, or I would do it that way, or what's gonna happen next?" The suspense of things, right? That's part of watching a TV show or, uh, a movie, right? But
Mhm.
I think sometimes too, in our leadership journey and knowing those moments is sometimes we have to step back and have
Mhm.
this idea of reflection. And we have to look at our own TV show, our own movie, and
Yes.
just step back and watch it. Because sometimes we're moving way too fast and we miss those moments. We miss that 5 minutes. And sometimes that 5 minutes just needs to be yourself reflecting back, going, okay, this is what happened. What can I learn from it? Because part of this leadership journey, it's not all fun and happiness, right? There are
Right.
times when we have to make tough decisions. There are times when some of the things that we do is unfavorable, but how can we step back and make sure that at the core, we knew we did it for the right things. If it's in education, we did it for the students. We did it for the community. We did it for this. But sometimes it may not look like that. So sometimes we have to step back and go, okay, how did this turn out? Why did it turn out that way? And always kind of ask that why.
Yes.
And if that why is because we did it or we led through love, then you should be good. You should be able to go, okay, I know it's a tough decision, but I know we did it right.
Right. And it's in love.
Mhm.
And for the good, for the whole.
Mhm.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to look to the next question. I'm going to check our time too to see where we are. Oh, okay. We got time. I love it. So, how do you balance the need for strong leadership with the principles of servant leadership in your organization? I love that we keep coming back to this theme
Mhm.
of servant leadership.
Mhm.
Like I'm a servant,
Mhm.
right? So how do you balance that need for that strong leadership? And you talked about it, you mentioned it earlier. You were like, if we did it in love, then we
Mhm.
probably made the right decision. So can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
So this idea of servant leadership, I had to kind of learn what does that really mean.
Mhm.
So just by the virtue of the word, it's how do you serve, right? It's servants. It's in the word, servant
Right.
leadership, right? How do you serve?
Right.
But before you serve, and this is something I needed to continue to learn. I continue to learn it now. Is understand who we are serving.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I made mention about Kobe Bryant, right?
Yes.
He had to understand the game. He had to understand that the game from high school to the NBA was completely different. So every day that we have the opportunity or blessing to serve and be that servant leadership, we really have to step back really quick and say, all right, what is the game like today?
Mhm.
And how can I be the best I can be as a servant leader in this context? Right?
Right.
Because sometimes we go into it going, all right, I'm going to serve. But is that what we really needed that day? But if you take time before you jump in and say, all right, let's understand the context, let's understand the people that's here. How can I best serve this situation?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's not by doing anything, it could be as simple as just listening, right? Because we have a lot of really strong professional colleagues.
Mhm.
And sometimes the only thing that they needed to have that day was for you to be there and just listen.
You know, it I'm so glad that I get an opportunity to interview individuals like you and just to engage in this conversation because it reminds me sometimes people just need you to listen. And
Mhm.
it reminds me of a colleague I was talking to. And I think she was kind of telling me and expressing to me how she felt about something. And I recall thinking to myself, like, oh, but I could tell her this and this might help her. I was trying to think of how to help her get
Mhm.
past the moment. And what she said, as I said, oh, I want to show you, she said, don't show me anything. I just need you to listen for a moment. I was like, "Oh, I forgot."
Mhm.
And I said that to myself, that I forgot to myself versus, out loud. And I said, "Oh, yes, absolutely." And it was a reminder. And today is a reminder that sometimes as a servant leader, people just want us to listen.
Mhm.
And we don't always have to fix, because people don't always need you to fix their problems.
Mhm.
Sometimes they just want you to hear them and they want to just be able to express.
Mhm.
So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, for sure. And here's another thing too that I think is really important about being a servant leader is that you really understand the folks that are around you, right?
Yes.
So there's this thought out there that says everyone has a different love language
Hmm.
or a language that allows that person to do the best they can do, right? And sometimes in the professional world, like what is your professional language to be supported?
Right.
Sometimes it's listening. Someone
Yes.
just needs to be listened to, or someone just needs to know that you have their back.
Absolutely.
And some people just need you to physically say, all right, open the door for me and I can do the rest. Or I need you to lift this with me, whatever that. So I'm saying that figuratively, of course.
Yes.
We're not lifting boxes or
Right.
anything. Unless we are lifting boxes, then, I still might need some help.
Right.
But it's
Right.
knowing, like me knowing Dr. Sullivan and how can I best serve you?
Wow.
Because if a servant leader does not know how to serve the individual, they're just doing it for themselves at that point. they're just serving so they can make themselves feel better that they're serving someone. But is it really serving that individual or the cause?
That's a good point. If you don't know the individual that you're serving, are you serving the individual or are you serving yourself? I like that.
Mhm.
I wanna highlight that because we talk about servant leadership and we end up in a space where we're like, I'm just gonna do this because it feels good. It makes me feel good.
Mhm.
But what about how it makes you feel or what you're experiencing from my leadership? So thank you for that other nugget.
Mhm. For
I'm getting some
sure.
golden nuggets over here.
Let's keep going.
Let's get some more nuggets.
We'll have a
Yes.
gold rush pretty soon here. So,
Yeah, we're gonna be rich.
and that's the thing is how do we measure that richness of things,
Yes.
right? So if you're a servant leader, are you measuring the richness by the ways that you felt like you served or the reflection of the person being served? Because like we just mentioned right here,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, are you just doing it for you so you can say you're a servant leader?
Yeah.
Or are
Yeah.
you actually serving that individual, right? So it's a it's an interesting thing. And that only comes when you reflect back and say, did I really help Dr. Sullivan today? Did I really help that individual today? And I bet you had that in the classroom too, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you had that instant no of like, I helped that individual today. I helped that student
And I
today.
I actually haven't really and I do say I'm a servant leader too,
Mhm,
so it's gonna cause me to reflect more too.
mhm,
I would like to think that I'm really out there to help other individuals, but I really wanna be able to be intentional, and
mhm,
one of my favorite words is intentional, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, but I wanna be intentional about serving
mhm,
and not self-serving, but
mhm.
serving others to make sure that you have what you need. So yeah, this is some good stuff.
Oh, for
This
sure.
is some good stuff. I'm gonna check to see what
Mhm,
we have. I think we have one last question, and then we might have some time for some other talk too.
for sure.
What advice, Eric, would you give your younger self if your younger self were sitting here to give you advice? What advice would you give to your current self?
So my younger self's gonna talk to
Gonna
me.
talk to to Eric, the mature Eric.
So what's funny about having the idea of someone from like not having the context and having someone from the past tell me something in the future
Mhm.
is going to be an interesting thing because the person in the future has the knowledge of what's happened during that time.
Mhm.
But knowing
Yes.
past Eric doesn't have that, and he would be very impulsive.
Okay.
He would think that he knew everything.
Oh.
So we're not judging current Eric, by the way.
Right,
We're,
right.
we're judging past
And
Eric right now.
I'm wondering if maybe I should have asked the other question, but I wanna hear this
Yeah,
first. But
yeah.
yeah.
So past Eric just has no clue, and past Eric not knowing what we know now will probably go, "Could you have done this versus that?"
Mhm.
Right? Would you have made? You could have been better if you did this, but past Eric didn't have that context, didn't have
Right.
that maturity, didn't have the mentorship that I have that future Eric has, right, or had. And I think that past Eric would probably be critiquing future Eric and probably would go, "Oh, you could have done better."
Mhm.
But the problem though is that's younger us.
Right.
That's the person that we evolved from. Because past Eric didn't take the time to let the world around him slow down.
Mm.
And he was more about himself as opposed to understanding the context of what we see now,
Wow.
right? So, would it be something that makes current Eric go, "Oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about"? No. I think what it would do is current Eric would go, "We made the right decisions. We
Got it.
followed the right path, and we are at a better place because we took the time to learn." Because past Eric, if you knew past Eric, and there's some folks that know past Eric, and they would probably say that he went a million miles an hour and probably needed to slow down.
Wow.
And that comes with maturity, right? It's
Yes.
slowing down and being part of the moment and really being intentional about that moment. So, not to say that past Eric wouldn't know what he's talking about,
Right.
it's that past Eric has a different context.
Got it. Wow. I was reflecting, actually I was
Mhm,
listening
mhm,
first, and then I started thinking about what advice would my younger self give to the leader I am today? And I think it would be continue to be kind. Like,
Mhm.
because I wasn't always kind when I was younger.
Mhm.
And so the me back then would look at me now and say, be kind, continue
Mhm.
to be kind, and regardless of what they think, be kind.
Mhm.
Because I think that my kindness sometimes is interpreted as a weakness.
Mhm.
And I want to stay true to who I am and who I want to be. And I want to be kind, right? Not
Mhm.
just nice, but I want to be kind. So I think I would tell myself that.
But how'd you figure that out? How did you
Um,
figure out that you need to tell your younger self that you need to be kind?
I figured I actually didn't process it until after you had started talking about what your younger self
Mhm.
was talking about, and then I started to remember who I was as a young person and who I am now and
Mhm.
how people want me to be as a leader.
Mhm.
People want us to be a certain way as a leader, and we they want us to slam the hammer. They want us to, you have to, like jam people up when things aren't going well, and I don't want to be her.
Mhm.
Who I want to be is Eric, you made a mistake. It's okay. How do we move forward?
Mhm.
Eric, how can I support you into being the greatest leader you can be? I want to continue to be her, and this is who I choose to be, and I won't deviate from that regardless. So I had to listen to you in order to kind of grab that opportunity to figure out what my younger self would tell my current self.
Okay. So I'm going to peel the onion really quick of what you just said because it just became a nugget for me.
Sure.
So the idea of the servant leadership, we were just discussing that,
Mhm.
right? It's you kind of made me feel that being a servant leader is knowing what I can do to make you be the best you can be,
Yes.
right? And I just peeled the onion of what you were just saying. You didn't say that explicitly,
Right.
but what I'm guessing and what I'm hoping is that when people have those moments, when they have that 5 minutes,
Hmm.
that they can spend that 5 minutes to see what can I do at that moment to make this person be the best they can be.
Wow. Thanks for peeling that onion. Making me cry.
Oh man.
Well, we're just about at our time. I want to say thank you for coming all this way to be on Emblazing Leaders and to pour in to our, community of individuals that are going to be watching, listening, however they're going to engage with us. I appreciate you so much, and I'm so glad that we're still connected. Thank you, and just gratitude forever.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to be here. This is one of those moments, right? This is one of those moments.
I love it. I
So,
love it. Thank you so much.
yeah.